Okay. Good evening. My name is Kathy Miller, and I'm the Town of Lansing Supervisor. I want to thank you for coming this evening for the information meeting on the Town of Lansing Sewer Map Plan and Report for 2013. First, I want to thank the Lansing School District for allowing us to use the auditorium and providing the audio-visual equipment for tonight's presentation. This will be a PowerPoint presentation followed by a question and answer session. We ask you to write your questions on the cards that were provided as you came in. The cards will be collected, and then at the end of the PowerPoint presentation, we'll read the questions from the cards, and they'll be directed towards the right panel member. This is not a public hearing. So it's not a time for you to stand up and say, I'm in favor of the sewer, or I'm not in favor of the sewer, or this is right or this is wrong. This is an information session. There will be public hearings held at future dates in the town hall. But right now, this is just an information session so that you can get all of your questions answered. I'd like to start by reading a paragraph from the Town of Lansing Sewage Facilities Committee report and recommendation that was dated January 3rd, 1995. Members of that committee were Jeff Clark, Kevin Kaufman, and Larry Sharpstein. And from that I am reading. 2 previous attempts to develop a municipal sewage treatment plan in Lansing have failed. Many reports have stated when the water lines were installed that sewer lines should have been installed at the same time. It would have been substantially more cost-effective. Even then, existing soil conditions and future pollution problems warranted municipal sewage collection and treatment. Both the town and village of Lansing, along with the county and state regulators, have been aware of the sewer and sanitation problem as far back as the 1960s. This is based on the information gathered in county documents and reports by the engineers hired by municipalities and the county. The problem of sewage treatment and disposal, which have existed for nearly 30 years, have caused unnecessary pollution, financial hardship, and replacement of inadequate and failed systems. Tax revenues, future development, health and environmental concerns, and the quality of life in Lansing are all directly linked to the development of a water and sewage disposal system. And that was right from that report in 1995. Since the issues that existed more than 30 years ago are still persistent today, another sewer committee was convened in 2011 in hopes of coming up with a solution that would be financially reasonable for the residents of Lansing. Members of the committee are Dale Baker, C.J. Delvecchio, Noel Desch, Tom Jones, Ed Levine, Kathy Miller, and Andy Sharaba. They have met almost every Wednesday for the past year and a half. The results of their efforts will be explained tonight by a panel of committee members, by Dave Herrick, the town engineer, by Mary June King, the school district business manager, and Guy Crow, our town lawyer, is here to answer questions for you. Now I'll turn things over to Sharon Bowman, the deputy supervisor, and she's going to give you a bit of an explanation of Article 12C of municipal law.
Thanks, Kathy. Welcome, everyone. I'm glad to see so many people here joining us for this very important informational meeting. So I'm going to share a little bit of information with you about the proposed sewer improvement area and Article 12C. In New York State, towns are the oldest form of government. In fact, towns existed even before New York State. Many of the rules and statutes covering the governance of towns literally date back to the 1800s. In villages and cities in New York State, the provision of water and sewer services to residents is one of many governmental functions. However, in towns, that doesn't necessarily apply. In towns, what at best could be called an antiquated holdover from the 1800s, the provision of water and sewer and other utilities like utility-like services in towns is a function of special improvement districts In effect, sewer districts are a separate form of governmental unit managed by towns. Compliance with these many special districts is very expensive. Most citizens rationally understand that the provision of water and sewer services is indeed a primary function of government. Starting in 1926, the General District Law was enacted. The purpose of the General District Law was to try to simplify the district process and move it towards the provision of certain water and sewer services as a general function of town governance. Town Law Article 12C, as enacted in 1966, applies to all towns in New York State. The process for forming 12C improvement areas shares many procedures with creating improvement districts, such as having a map, plan, and report, and public hearings, all of which Kathy has spoken about. But it differs in two fundamental aspects. First, its funding mechanisms may be very different from district funding. And secondly, what is effectively accomplished was to make the provision of water and sewer services a general function of a town. Today, with General Municipal Law, Article 17C, New York State is actively encouraging towns to dissolve and eliminate districts and the multiple overlapping taxing authorities and move towards consolidation of governmental functions. The New York State Comptroller determined that this cumbersome process is costing New York State tens of millions per year with no discernible benefit. Even in the town of Lansing's own analysis, it shows very substantial savings from year to year, money that can be best spent elsewhere to accomplish more public projects, to put in savings, or to even reduce taxes. It's time that Lansing joins the 20th century and simply recognizes that an essential service of government is the provision of water and sewer. I'd like to now turn the podium over to Dave Herrick, the town engineer.
Thank you, Sharon. Good evening, folks. My name is David Herrick. I'm with T.G. Miller Engineers and Surveyors in Ithaca, and we have the privilege of working with the town as the town engineer on the creation and finalization of the map plan and report for the proposed sewer benefit area, and specifically the construction of improvements within the South Lansing sewer improvement area. Sharon described to you that town law does afford the opportunity to create a sewer benefit area for the whole of the town. What I would like to point out to you in the image that you have here, as you see the full extents of the town, including those lands down at McKinney's along East Shore Drive, there are several dark areas, and there also are exhibits here up front and also out in the lobby that you can look at after the presentation. But these dark areas represent either existing sewer districts, as is the case with the Warren Road Sewer District and the Cherry Road Sewer District in the south end of the town. And then there's the proposed South Lansing Sewer Improvement Area that generally encompasses this area of the South Lansing hamlet. And very quickly, I want to share with you the nuts and bolts of what's being proposed for the facilities to be constructed in this South Lansing Sewer Improvement Area. In a nutshell, we have over 8 miles of medium and large diameter sewer collection mains, gravity mains. We have a centralized pump station that will be located at the base of Myers Road down near the entrance to the town park. We have over 1.5 miles of small and large diameter force mains that are connected to the centralized pump station. And most importantly, the town will be looking at constructing its own wastewater treatment plant. It'll be initially sized for 150,000 gallons per day of sewage treatment. Now, the extent of the sewer improvement area is very linear. It stretches from the lake all the way over to Armstrong Road, just off of Peruville. And the focus of the town, that being the board and the sewer committee, was to target certain facilities that do have an outstanding and documented need for municipal sewer. First and foremost is the Lansing Central School Districts, which you'll hear more about shortly. There's also the New York State correctional facilities, the Boys and Girls School, currently contemplating investing over $1.8 million in upgrades to their current treatment system. There's numerous commercial properties along the 34B corridor that would benefit by having access to municipal sewer, given some of the small sizes of those lots, and again, documented septic system failures. And then there's the potential for mixed-use development on both municipal and private lands within this sewer improvement area. And last but not least is the need to provide septic system relief for those properties located along the lake that are subject to flooding from backup of Cayuga Lake and at risk of having their septic systems dumped directly into the waters. So the layout of the collections system first has to respect gravity. We expect that the treatment plant to be located down on Portland Point Road will receive most of the flow to it by gravity lines. However, as we get closer to the lake, we have these streams, gorges, and in essence barriers to conventional gravity sewer. So we will have to include the centralized pump station at the bottom of Myers Road that will pick up essentially from Portland Point Road all lands towards the lake. I mentioned that there were over 8 miles of collector sewers included in the project. It's obviously not 8 miles from Armstrong Road down to Myers Park, but the reality is that we need to provide parallel collection sewers along most of that route. The purpose for doing that is to facilitate hooking up your properties without having to extend laterals underneath the state, county, and town highways, which is very expensive and also comes into conflict with other utilities that are within those corridors. A lot of the sewer system will be constructed within state and town highway right-of-ways, but a lot of it won't. There will be some cross-lot construction of these collector sewers, and the town will have to work with those landowners to obtain temporary and permanent easements for construction of those improvements. Ladoga, Myers Park area. Given their low nature relative to all the hills around them, we cannot provide a conventional gravity collection system. So what's being proposed for the Ladoga Park and Myers Park is a low-pressure force main system. It will require that landowners in Ladoga and a few of those in Myers Park area will have grinder pumps installed instead of the typical gravity sewer lateral connection. And then there's the wastewater treatment plant. As I mentioned, it's proposed to be constructed on Portland Point Road. It'll be located just to the south of the existing electrical substations, if you're familiar with the area. It'll fit in well with the industrial character of that section of Portland Point Road. And again, we're looking at initially constructing 150,000 gallons per day of treatment capacity, expecting that in the first full year of system startup, we'll only use 40 to 50% of that capacity. It is anticipated that over a period of time, 20 years to be exact, that there will be growth within the sewer improvement area, and that 150,000 gallons per day will all be accounted for and utilized by the end of the 20-year period. The type of treatment facility is a sequencing batch reactor. It's proven technology. We have folks from GHD, the former Stearns and Wheeler consultant company up in Cazenovia, who have looked at the facility, sized it, determined what the physical needs are of that process in order that we can meet the discharge effluent limitations that have been presented to and required by the New York State DEC. What we will account for in the initial construction of the sewage treatment plant is the ability to expand that SBR process. It'll be very easy in the future to provide parallel tankage such that the town will have the ability to expand beyond that 150,000 gallons per day if it's necessary. And it's expected that the land on which the wastewater treatment plant will be constructed will be ultimately dedicated to the town by Cargill for perpetuity. At this point, I'd like to ask Mary June King to come up and speak to issues related to the Lansing Central School District.
I prepared a few slides with some information. I'm just really going to be presenting to you some of what's been going on with the school district's finances for the last few years, and all attached to our revenue stream and what's been happening with that. This slide, and I'm hoping it shows up a little better out there than it does here, is just to indicate to you with a bar chart of the respective shares of revenue aid.
I don't know how to... No, maybe it's the front lights.
It is. It's the spotlights right here.
I don't know how to turn them off.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
There. A theater major.
Okay, so that shows up nicely now. So you can see the relative share of the revenue stream for the school district over the last 4 years at least. And it's really just intended that top share, the purple that you see, is growing, and that is the property tax levy. In the green color, you see the pilots. That is the AES Cayuga, now Cayuga Power Plant pilot, which is our most significant taxpayer and has been historically here for many, many years. And that share of the share of the revenue stream is decreasing. The other numbers include federal aid, and that number has been decreasing as well. The federal aid came in 2009-10 to make up for the cuts that we started to see from state aid at that point. And so you see that decreasing, and you see the state aid staying relatively stable. What's really holding that stable is the fact that we are spending more money in aidable categories. So we're increasing our state aid by sending more of our services through the TST BOCES program or the other BOCES throughout New York State, as well as increasing our state aid because of the fact that we've had some building projects, and our state aid increases when we have payments on the bonds for those projects. You can go to the next slide and just keep running. So I thought I'd give you some indication of what things are driving our tax changes. And so starting with state aid, this is just over 4 years, and starting with 2009-10, the state reduced our aid. They calculated the formulas. This is the aid the school district should get, and then they whacked off about $750,000. The federal government came in that money with the ERA, that year with the ERA monies, and pretty much met within about $3,000, I've rounded these numbers, all of the state aid reduction. In 10-11, then we see the state taking a much larger cut out of our calculated fundable aids, and the federal aid was decreasing at that point. So we had to start making up that difference through budget cuts, which, as you're probably familiar, we made a number of them in that year, as well as increasing the property tax levy. 11-12, we see the same thing, an increased amount of reduced state aid, and federal aid continuing to increase. And as of the current year, the 12-13 fiscal year for us, our state aid has been reduced by about $1.3 million, and our federal aid is zero. The impact of the AES, or Cayuga Power Plant, on the district, we started to express it this way a couple of years ago in terms of how many homes have moved out of the district with each year's reduction in value. So the first year that we saw the reduction in value of the AES power plant at that time was a $30 million reduction in value, the equivalent of about 150 homes in Lansing, valued at $200,000. just kind of evaporating from the scene. 11-12, we continue that reduction with a $17.5 million reduction in the AES. If you go to the next slide, you'll see a further reduction in 12-13, the current year, of a little over $26 million in value. And we are projecting, according to the terms of the pilot right now, for in 13-14, a further reduction of just over $12 million in value. Another 61 homes valued at $200,000 moving out of the district. It comes out to about 429,000 homes, or I'm sorry, about 429, that would be frightening. About 429 homes valued at $200,000 each that have essentially disappeared from the district as far as a property value or the value that they can bring through the tax vehicle. Current school district septic systems are certainly a significant aspect of what's going on with this sewer proposal relative to the district's thinking. We would have to spend about $2 million replacing our current septics. We have 2 of our 3 septic systems, or our 3 major septic systems, are on their last legs. They've been held together, I like to say, by Glenn Fenner's duct tape and my mother's rosary for the last few years. Quite truthfully. We anticipate a $2 million replacement on that. We're spending currently about $7,000 a year for operations and maintenance, just keeping it up, having it pumped, the chemicals that we have to put into it. It would have a 17-year financial cost impact of about $1.25 per thousand on the tax rate, and would require replacement again in 20 to 30 years. So septic replacement is something that we are very much looking at. Depending on how this vote comes out in September, that will be the moment at which we start to plan, what are we going to do? Are we going to be replacing the septics in the next 2 years because we are desperately in need of that, or are we going to be connecting ourselves to a sewer? If we were to connect to the sewer, we have an estimated capital cost on that of about $1.1 million. Now, I have to be honest with you, this is without bringing in the architects and spending $50,000 or so on a real thorough study. We're not going to drop that dime until we have a better indication of where this sewer discussion is going. But the architects have been willing to give us a good estimate of a $1.1 million estimated capital cost. Our cost to the district, according to the plan that's been presented to everyone, including you, is about just shy of $30,000 per year for the operations and maintenance and the use costs. And the 17-year finance cost would be approximately $1.19 per thousand on your tax impact. As far as future planning, a few people have asked me, you know, if with the sewer, with that comes development, that means increased enrollments, and oh no, the next thing we know, you're going to turn around and start telling us you have to build another building. And so I met with the superintendent on this. I just wanted to bring up some recent enrollment numbers for you over the last decade or so. And I grabbed these right off of the state aid website. Anyone can access these numbers. You can see our student enrollment has been decreasing overall, although I will say in the last couple of years it has been slightly increasing. 10 or 15 students a year we've been increasing the last couple of years. So just by looking at those numbers alone, we could certainly get back to those 2002, 2003 numbers of 1,300 plus students without having to add any facilities, because you didn't have more facilities than that to house those students, and I think that you were still providing an outstanding educational program at that time. My understanding is that a number of years ago, maybe in the early 1970s, the student population was closer to 1,500, and again, there wasn't a need at that time for further facilities, although programs have changed since the 70s, certainly. An additional 65 students, if they came in at around 5 students per grade level, would have little to no, as you can see, impact on our staffing needs. They would have little to no impact on our class sizes. And the Board of Education would determine if and when there was a need, and the Board of Education is the most immediate representatives of you, and they would determine if and when we had a significant number of additional students such that we had to increase our staffing, or had to perhaps at some long-term vision replace some facilities or improve upon or add to our facilities. And that's about it for the school district.
Who's next?
Mary Jo, can you get those lights?
I will introduce whoever's after
Dave
me,
again.
Dave Herrick.
I guess.
Again.
Mary
to the
Jo,
podium.
Mary Jo, can you get the lights?
Which ones did she hit for the?
Wow.
Yeah.
That looks good.
We can't see
Is
the
that good?
slide anymore.
No, a little more. Down. There you
Can
go.
you see, Dave?
A little more.
How's that?
Good.
That looks good, Karen.
Can you see?
Well, that'll shorten up my talk because I can't see what I'm reading. Yeah. I've been blamed of that.
Can you see?
Oh, God,
Well, no, I can't. But
See if I can get some backlights. I'm not worried about that one.
I can always stand. I can stand
There
with
you
my back
go.
to you and go like that.
No, that's good, because
Okay.
that's still.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we have roughly a $10.8 million sewer improvement project for the South Lansing sewer improvement area. How do we think it's going to get paid for? How do we know it's going to get paid for? At this point, the town has received some positive news with respect to grants and low-interest loans. Earlier this year, or maybe it was late last fall, the town learned that it is eligible to receive about a $2.537 million grant from the Empire State Development. And the town did also apply for and receive positive news that for the balance not paid for with a grant, it's eligible for long-term financing with the New York State Environmental Facilities Corporation. And given the town's project goals and its ranking, it currently is eligible for a long-term loan of 30 years at a subsidized interest rate. So there's still payments left to be made for the loan that's been received from EFC. How's that going to happen? When the projections were first realized for the costs and the total costs of sewer to a user in this proposed sewer improvement area, even with the grants and the low interest loan, the price tag was coming in at about $750 for a single family residence. It was acknowledged by both the sewer committee and town board members that that cost was still too high. And it was further understood that, as you heard about the school taxes, that there are other benefits to the town outside of just connecting up homes that are immediately adjacent to the sewer system. So after considering numerous cost-sharing proposals, the town determined that splitting the capital costs of the sewer benefit area, 60% to what's called Tier 1 properties and 40% to what's called Tier 2 properties, should be presented to you folks. With these percentages, the total user costs for homes connected to the municipal sewers now fall closer to $500 per year. What is Tier 1 and what is Tier 2? Tier 1 properties are those that have sewer in their front yard or can immediately connect to an existing municipal sewer system. That's the case with Warren Road Sewer District and the Cherry Road Sewer District. And it would also be the case for those properties within the South Lansing sewer improvement area. Tier 2 properties would be all other properties in the town of Lansing outside of the village. For those Tier 1 properties that have access to municipal sewer, there will be additional charges for wastewater treatment, maintenance of the town's collection system, and scheduled replacement of worn-out equipment. For those of you that did look at and receive the draft of the map, plan, and report, you'll find all that described in Section 10. Properties in the Tier 2 category will not have any of these additional charges. The Tier 2 properties will be charged for the 40% of capital costs based on assessed value. This charge will be included on the annual town and county tax bill. There are many Tier 2 properties that are partially or wholly exempt from paying these sewer benefit charges. The town has and will continue to work closely with the Tompkins County Assessment Department each year to identify these parcels and apply the exemptions correctly. Recent clarification of taxable status for several Tier 2 parcels has already reduce the proposed ad valorem rate from what you received in the mail to what you'll see this evening. As the town considers and implements future expansion of the sanitary sewer system, these Tier 2 properties, then served, will be charged the Tier 1 rates in effect at that time. We do have this evening with us spreadsheets that show all of the properties in all of these different categories. All of the Tier 1 properties in the South Lansing Sewer Improvement Area, Warren Road and Cherry Road, and then the Tier 2 properties, which are all the rest outside of the village. So if folks want to come up afterwards, we can look at what your individual costs are proposed to be, given whether you're a Tier 1 or Tier 2 status. So what are the actual charges proposed for the Tier 1 parcels in South Lansing Sewer Improvement Area? Well, once you're connected to the municipal sewer main, your property will be charged for wastewater treatment based on quarterly water consumption. If your property is currently on private water, then the charge will be calculated using roughly 160 gallons per day, which equates to roughly 14,600 gallons for a quarter or 3 months. The charges for capital debt, which are shown to be about $220, those will be included together with the capital replacement charge. That's for the worn-out equipment. Those two charges are based on the equivalent dwelling unit method of determining charges for benefited properties. And you'll find that in the map plan and report under Appendix D is a description of how each property in the Tier 1 category will be assigned these equivalent dwelling units. For a single-family home, it's quite simply 1 unit. If it's a 2-family home, it's 2 units, and so on infinitum. So the total first-year cost that's proposed now for the sewer improvement area here in South Lansing for a typical single-family home in this area is coming out to about $475 per year. Now we're also, as was mentioned before, dissolving the Warren Road and the Cherry Road Sewer District and combining all of those units into the overall town-wide sewer benefit area. And as Tier 1 properties, the total charges for a typical property in Warren Road and in Cherry Road were going to be roughly $477 and $515 respectively. And all of these numbers are estimated and summarized in Section 11 of the engineer's report. If you're in the Tier 2 category, at this point in time, the ad valorem charge will be roughly $24 per $100,000 of assessed value. I think at this point it's probably important to note that as growth does occur within all of the Tier 1 categories, as well as normal growth outside in Tier 2, that the current thinking of the board is that the costs should be maintained at a level base over time. So as units are added to the district, as assessed value goes up, there will be an ability for the town to save money for future capital repairs and or possible extensions of the sewer collection systems into other Tier 2 areas. So in addition to the annual expenses of the improvement areas, there's going to be the one-time connection for hooking up either your home or your business to the town sewer main. And in the case of the South Lansing Sewer Improvement Area, you'll find that these costs are broken out in Section 10 of the engineer's report, and very quickly it's suggested that for a typical gravity connection, a homeowner could be looking at roughly $3,750 or $3,800 in total for hooking up a 4-inch lateral together with abandoning their existing septic system in accordance with health department requirements. If you are in the Ladoga or Myers Park area, there will be added costs for the wet well and grinder pumps that are going to be necessary in order to connect up to the town's force main system. Though the town will provide, at the owner's expense, a standard wet well and pump package such that the operation of that low-pressure system can function as originally designed. So all of the homeowners that require these booster systems will have a very similar pump and wet well package. So the time frame for connecting. Because we need to support the long-term operation costs of both the collection system and the treatment plant, the town is asking or requiring of this formation process that existing properties hook up to the town sewer 8 years following completion of the sewer system. It's expected that probably from this point forward it'll take at least 2 or 2.5 years to construct the system, and another 8 years after it's available. So looking at a sunset, if you will, of year 2023 to connect to the town sewer. Now, if you choose not to connect to the sewer, there will still be charges that are levied against the property for the debt retirement and also for the capital replacement. So you'll avoid the costs for 8 years of wastewater treatment, but there will still be debt charges to pay for reduction of capital expense. I think that's it. And next, Tom Jones.
Thank you, Dave. Can everyone hear me out there? Okay. The committee thought it was important to look at school taxes and the growth of the tax base, as your school taxes equal about 2/3 of your total property tax bill each year. And I went through my tax bills today and just added them up, so I'm pretty sure that 2/3 is a pretty accurate number. Up on the screen here, there are 3 factors in the calculation projections that are up on the screen and that you have in your handouts out there in the audience. The first one, the projected school budget tax levies for the next 12 years. That would be the first thing we looked at. And this was done with the help of the school business office. And I also looked at and reviewed school budget tax levies since the year 2002. And incidentally, for those that don't know me, I was the school business official here from 1992 to 2002. So I think I know a little bit about the history of the levies and so forth. The second factor we looked at was the projected assessment change for the next 12 years, factoring in increased growth of about 1% annually and a decrease in value of the AES power plant. Mary June's slide showed you that the power plant since the school year 9-10 has decreased in value $86 million, with another $14 million to be added on in the decrease in the year 14-15 for a total of $100 million decrease in property value. And I equate that to $250,000 homes. And the third factor we looked at and put into these numbers was projected growth in housing starts, those on Warren Road, the Lucente and Cardamone projects, and the housing potential, new housing potential in South Lansing across from the town hall. And those add up to about $44 million, that increased housing. Now to the chart. If you look at the line without sewer, and you can look at year 1, year 3, year 5, and year 10. I broke it down into 4 different years. I didn't want to show all 10 of them. If we don't do anything, if we just stay at the status quo, we project that the tax rate in the year 15-16 for the school district is $25 a thousand, and then it goes out to the year 10 to $30.49 a thousand. Now, with the projected growth and with sewer, and that's the way you're going to have growth if you have sewer, you can see that in year 1 it's $24.76 a thousand, and it goes out to year 10 and it would be $30.03 a thousand. Then the third column down, the difference, you can actually see that with sewer, based on these projections, it's 24 cents a thousand less for school taxes with sewer than versus without. And in year 10, that's in the first year, and then in year 10, it becomes 46 cents a thousand. Now that's based on that 40 million of growth being put into the system, so to speak, over 10 years. So, if you look at Tier 2, the last line down there, your assessment, people in Tier 2, they would pay 24 cents a thousand in the year 15-16 for sewer tax, and yet your school taxes would be reduced 24 cents a thousand, so it's a wash. And then you can see it for year 3. The difference is 32, less in school taxes, 23 in sewer costs, a difference of 9 cents. Year 5, 33 cents, less in school taxes, 23 for your sewer tax, a difference in 10. So you're actually putting a dime in your pocket per thousand, and then year 10 it becomes 24 cents. Now I'll turn it over to Dale Baker.
Thank you, Tom. Well, I'm going to talk a little bit about the benefits of the sewer system, and the sewer committee has been discussing what the benefits are this past year and a half. First of all, we'll be stabilizing our tax base. As a town, we'll be able to better plan for its future. We'll have areas where we can have dense development, and then there's going to be areas where we can have open agriculture land and wooded. So it'll be easier to segment things from a town planning perspective. Development of a sewer system will attract new small businesses, and this is the key, we feel, to help keeping some of our taxes a little bit lower. To be built in the core of our community, we're in Tier 1, where the sewer is located. Quality small businesses are the basis for most small and mid-sized communities. A sewer will be an asset for tourism in our community. As you know now, we do have tourism, and a lot of it is lake-related, Cayuga Lake-related. We expect that with sewers, we'll have more waterfront development potentially on Cayuga Lake and be able to support more businesses because of the availability of sewer. And finally, as you've heard from a couple speakers, the Cayuga Operating Company, previously AES, has been the largest taxpayer in Lansing for many years, and the success value has declined markedly in recent years. We'd like to create an environment that depends less on taxes from a single industry, such as the Cayuga Operating Company. Quality of life. Lansing's going to grow and has grown with or without a sewer. During the past 10 years, Lansing population has grown 5%, or 0.5% per year. With the sewer, we can better manage how the town grows with dense development in the core area. And with the sewer, we're hoping to bring about what we call smart growth. Small businesses will be attracted by sewer. That will benefit our tax base. It'll provide jobs to our residents and help ensure that money we all spend stays within the community. These small businesses will provide services that are beneficial to many of us. Number 3, individuals are attracted to Lansing because of our school system, as we all know. Having an excellent school system helps us to ensure our property values stay constant. School taxes are our largest property tax, as Tom pointed out. We as property owners pay each year. Anything we can do that encourages development and creates a better tax base for the school system, we should do. With the sewer system, we'll have a much larger variation of housing options available, especially in the Tier 1 area. This will be a benefit for all of those in our community. And finally, sewer will support centralized development that has sidewalks, that has paths, has trails, which will mean a more sustainable community for all of us. And with that, I am going to turn it over to Katrina Binkowitz, a member of the town board, to talk about the environment.
Thank you. I'm happy to see everybody here tonight. I was on the town board from 2000 to 2003, and while on the board at that time, I was very involved with the Intermunicipal Watershed Organization. The municipalities around the lake realized that the health of our environment, especially our water, was critical, and they got together to try to plan and protect the future of the lake and of the water resources. Environmental protection is very important, and I think it's probably one of the easiest slides to present. I think we all agree that clean water is important to ourselves for swimming, recreation, for our homes, for, excuse me, it's very important for our drinking water. Providing sewer infrastructure will address failing and aging septic systems. I think if I asked you to raise your hand if you had a problem with your septic system in the last 10 years, if you've repaired your septic system, if you were concerned about algae in the ditch, the smell of somebody else's effluent coming down by your house, there would be a lot of hands raised. I'm not great at public speaking. Okay.
You're doing fine.
Thank you. Okay. When I first came to town, one of the reasons I stayed in Lansing was because the beauty of the lake, the beauty of the agriculture, the rural feeling, it was what really attracted me and brought me here. And I've grown to care about it even more. If we provide sewer infrastructure, we will be able to have centralized development. A denser development in the center of the town would allow for businesses to be more sustained because of the concentration of the population. When you have denser development and people can build houses on smaller lots, then they are less, the price of the homes can go down. So we have people that cannot spend as much money can have homes. It allows for reducing pressure of development of valuable farmland and for open and wooded land. Why do we want to preserve that? This is part of our heritage and our history here. It's really important to preserve good soils so that we can produce food locally. It's really important recreationally for people to have a chance to walk, to ski, for their kids to be in the woods and in the fields. And the reason we can preserve the farmland and also the open and wooded land is because of cost of services. With sewer, we have more businesses, and when you have cost of services, it means when you pay the tax dollars that business pays is more than the price in tax dollars of services. Open land and wooded land also provides more tax dollars than cost. When you have residents and houses, the price, the cost of services is much more than you actually get in taxes. So, I just want to also tell a story. Where I grew up in a small town, there was lots of trails, there was fields, and that was 30 years ago. And when I go back, there's houses on those fields, there's houses in the woods, there's houses everywhere, and there's not that quality of life, that recreation. So I guess that's all I have to say. Thank you. I'm going to introduce Kathy Miller.
Yes. So to close, the first thing I'd like to say is talk about is why now? Why are we thinking about doing sewer now? The first thing is we have a $2.5 million grant from the New York State Southern Tier Development Agency. We have a certain amount of time to use this grant. If we don't use it, we will lose it. We're very lucky we qualified for this grant because one of the criteria is how many homes you have in your town that are under a certain value. And in Lansing, we have a lot of homes that could have pushed us out of that, out of the ability to get this $2.5 million grant. We have a lot of upper-end homes. As time goes by, we may not, in fact, qualify for this again. The other reason is right now, we've qualified for the EFC loan, which is at a reduced interest rate. It generally is half of whatever the market interest rate is, whatever the going interest rate is. So that it will be a big savings for us. That's another one that if we don't use it, we will have to qualify for it and we could lose it again. The other thing is, even though Cayuga Operating Company may change to gas, I think it would be very, very unwise of us to once again look at this as our very major source of income for the taxes for the school. It's kind of, we looked at it as the goose that laid the golden egg. I don't think the eggs are going to be golden anymore. So to count on Cayuga Operating Company again would be very, very foolish. And if they do go up in value, that would be wonderful. I don't think it will ever reach the value it was years ago. The other thing is right now, construction costs are very competitive. And I think the projection is they will stay low or at this particular level until the economy really starts to pick up. And as soon as the economy really starts to pick up, the interest rate is going to go up, construction costs are going to go up, and this $10.8 million plan will be much more costly for the town. So it's kind of like all of these things have come together and the time is right. You want to go to the next one? The most important thing about this slide is the mandatory referendum. What that means is either in August or September, and this will depend on the seeker review, which we have started, we will hold a vote. And that's when you get a chance to vote yay or nay on the sewer. The people who can vote are those who are property owners in the town of Lansing. So if there's two names on your deed, for instance, if there's a husband and wife on the deed, you both get a vote. So that's 2 votes for that particular property. If there's only one name on the deed, there's only 1 vote. So run out there and get your name on the deed.
Won't help.
The other thing is, it doesn't matter whether you have 5 properties in town or 1. As a property owner, you just get that 1 vote. So you don't get 5 votes because you have 5 properties. This is just a sequence of events. We have already started the environmental review process. We will hold a number of public hearings so that you can come and tell us what your feelings are about the sewer project. But I will tell you that in August or September, and I'm hoping it's not later than September, we will hold a vote, and everybody will be able to cast their vote and say yay or nay on the sewer. So this is a very democratic process. If you want it, great. If you don't, that's up to you. It's not something, we've worked very hard to try and get these numbers down so that it's affordable. And I realize when you look at these numbers, nothing ever looks affordable. That's the bottom line. But going out, if in 5 or 10 years, for some reason, we're told we have to have sewer, the costs are going to be a lot higher. So it's up to you. We've done the work, and it's going to be up to you to become educated, to get more information if you need it, so that when you go to vote, you're casting